Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNate at BloodyElbow.com, joined once again, as always, by the inimitable Eugene S. Robinson, author of Fight, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Something, Something, Something. And, I don't even care about the subtitle anymore, Eugene. That's where we're at. We're going to be given
I'm
the
way beyond caring.
infamous and patented Care Don't Care preview on UFC 173. And I got to tell you, after that banging Bellator pay-per-view, I really don't care about UFC 173. We've seen the real thing. Can the UFC compete? Eugene, your thoughts?
I think you are actually right because I think in one fell swoop we realize that the dramatic content of any fight in Bellator outweighs the dramatic content of any fight in the UFC for the simple fact that a guy loses in the UFC, the worst that happens is eventually he gets cut and then he fights in Bellator. But a guy loses in Bellator, he is in a terrible, terrible no man's land. There's no lost battalion when you lose it in Bellator. There's just anonymity.
Yeah.
Like some celebrity was complaining about how I really miss my privacy and my anonymity, and some old style celebrity said, "Huh, you want anonymity? Try doing 3 bad movies in a row. We'll see you." No paparazzi at the deli after Ghost Dad.
No shit. The other thing about Bellator is there's always a dramatic arc in the fights. Like in the UFC, sometimes you care about why they're fighting, sometimes you have no idea. It's just guys fighting. In Bellator, it's always guys fighting the boss because we've had Eddie Alvarez versus Bjorn Rebney and Viacom. This weekend we had King Mo against Dick Rider Bjorn Rebney. I mean, live and on air. Ben Askren said on the MMA Hour yesterday he thought King Mo was trying to get fired. It seems like I can't tell if they're doing the old Vince McMahon thing they do in the WWE or if this is real,
Hey man, it worked wonders for Tito. Dana White is my bitch. Worked wonders for Tito. He snatched victory from the jaws of defeat with a dick riding bit, man. I mean, after the fight, he was just a cranky guy who was having a hard time facing reality. Now, come on, man. He could get rid of the crown and just call himself, whatever. Something with the words "dick riding" in it would be just fantastic. I mean, who? It's like the guy on the JetBlue, the flight attendant who said when the woman flipped out and asked for more peanuts, he's like, fuck you, and then jumps off the escape hatch and flees. Everybody who's had a job wants to do this, man.
Exactly. The problem is you wake up the next morning and you got no job. It's like Jello Biafra said, riot. What tonight's?
That's right.
Shit. What is the quote? Give me the quote.
He said, tonight it's a blast. Tomorrow you're homeless.
Yeah, tomorrow you're homeless. Tonight it's a blast. That's right. That's the live for the day.
Or it's very much like my last day as a dishwasher, where I was eating and the woman goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm on my break." She goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm eating." She goes, "You don't have a meal plan." I go, "I'm still eating." She goes, "You can't eat without a meal plan." I go, "If I can't eat, I don't work." She goes, "If you don't work, you'll never work in food service again."
Thank you. Deal.
I stood up with my sandwich and walked out. It was it.
Well done. Yeah, those job things, man. Those of us what's not fortunate enough to be born independently wealthy have to deal with them. But we have a job to do. We've got to.
Like I told somebody, I said, look, unless you die at your desk, you're gonna leave your job. Eventually, you're gonna leave your job. And if you die at your desk, woe betide you.
Yeah, and woe betide everybody else. My political mentor died at his desk, God rest his soul, and miss him very much. And it's a sad way to go, man. You do not
heart attack.
Yep, 58 years old, heart attack, just killed. One working away, man. But anyway, he was one of those John Coltrane guys.
I want to go like Nelson Rockefeller.
Well, I'd like to go with like Nelson Rockefeller with a better cover-up plan. Like,
and also at about 100 years old, I'd like to.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't want everybody to know that I died in the arms of some skank. And for the record, of course, I would never do such a thing. But Nelson did go out good. But anyway, we've got to get through the UFC 173. Care, don't care. Fight card. Disclaimer time, Eugene. You're up.
You know what? You know what? I'm slightly changing this disclaimer because after the last UFC, man, where not they were not the one right before UFC Fight Night, there were some actual undercards where I was like, God damn, what the? How could we? I feel really bad about those don't cares. The guys now who I don't know whether they're watching the show or what, but some of these guys who are getting glossed with the don't care are coming out and actually, you know, getting my attention in ways that the only way possible, you know, by fighting, you know, barn burners of fights. So if you get a don't care in this one, that means you've got one avenue and one avenue only to get out of don't care, and that's by fighting a barn burner of a fight. It's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection of the marketing heretofore for you. But if you fight a barn burner of a fight, we're forever, you're forever in our care column, unless you become a gift or a gifta.
Or we have a memory lapse, which does happen at our ages. I feel bad about it because I've had some guys like put on great fights that I really liked with that a neat style. Then there's just such a flood of fights that when they come back around, their name didn't click with me. You know, like
that's what cracks me up. These guys are posters. Yeah, you know, you don't know every single fighter in the universe of fighters. Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's these 20-year-old guys who got nothing to do but watch fights and not study for the college classes or do their half-assed job. It's like, listen,
or train.
Yeah, or train, like in your case. It's like we got jobs here, actual jobs and kids. 1 plus 2, we're barely able to watch the fight. So this is real life, real stuff. And here we go. We got 3 fights on the UFC Fight Pass preliminary card. I remember 2 of these names out of these 6 fighters. So first up, welterweights, David Michaud versus Li Jinglang.
No idea, don't care.
Exactly. Sorry, guys. Featherweight, Sam Sicilia versus Aaron Phillips. Remember, Sam Sicilia we infamously once mixed up with Sam Seiler. So sorry about that. I'll give him a care for that. But honestly, I still barely remember Sam Sicilia, even though best intentions to try to remember this guy. What's your take?
I'm in the same column on that one. The name rings a bell. And, of course, right now there's a guy with his fingers poised over the keyboard. How could you forget his famous fight against Sagadamama Gabagabi? Okay.
Exactly.
Sagadamama Gabagabi. I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Well,
sorry.
Sam is I cheated here and checked Wikipedia, which I generally don't do on this show. Sam's 1-3 in his last 4 UFC fights, so I'm not really that upset about barely remembering him.
You see, the thing is, when you say Sam is 1-3, there's no drama inherent in Sam being 1-3 because much like Dana White has said, the bald guy has said, he's like, you know, well, he's free to make money other places, which he can. You know, World Series of Fighting, you know, Bellator. It's you don't see that real drama-born desperation. I've realized now until you go from second tier to third tier. I love Joe Diesel Riggs, but you see, you know. And there's no reason why he shouldn't.
No,
don't give me that bit about, oh, he's had a bunch of losses. So what? So is Nick Diaz, you know.
Yeah, Joe Diesel Riggs is a very entertaining, charismatic guy. The big green tattoo on his abdomen, like very memorable. People know him, but misplayed his hand, and now he's in the netherworld and never coming back, it looks like. But that brings us to the final fight of the Fight Pass card. Lightweight, Anthony Njokuani versus Vince Pinchel.
Yep, care.
Exactly. Njokuani has penetrated my consciousness mostly with his homophobic comments about grappling, as well as a pretty killer Muay Thai style. So, you know, that's what I got.
You know, the thing is, I remember when I started wrestling in high school, and I talked to my friends and said, hey, man, I'm going after the wrestling team. You going to wrestle? And they'd be like, nah, I don't want to hugging up on some guys. And it had never dawned on me that that's what it was. You know, it always dawned on me as like fighting. You know, the whole, because I'm not going to hug up on some guys in my underwear. It's like, where does your head go that that's the first thing you think of? You know, I'm not going to hug up to some muscly guys in tight underwear with pressing their pelvises. Okay, what the fuck are you talking about?
Exactly. Because if you've ever wrestled, the fear and the adrenaline and the anger and, you know, like my limited high school wrestling experience was so fraught with humiliation and physical punishment. Sexuality was the last thing on my mind, man. I was busy wiping the blood off my nose and crawling off the mat as everybody laughed.
Yep.
And there was nothing hot and horny about that for me. Maybe somebody was sweating in the back. I mean, it's like, you know the old joke about how do you spot the arsonist at the fire?
How's that?
He's the guy with his hands in his pockets and a smile on his
yeah,
face.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, different strokes for different folks, and you know, people are seeing different things. But yeah, like the wrestling thing. One more discussion. I try to avoid this shit, but YouTube wants me to watch street fights since I do this cage fighting shit for a living. And so purely, I wasn't at World Star Hip Hop camping out for 6 depressive hours while I was out last week. I was doing my business on YouTube, happened to see this video. Austin one-on-one turns into street brawl. 90,000 views. It's from last week. I figure, well, okay, you know,
It's your
click
own
it.
town. You might see somebody you know.
Pretty odd because I stay away from. I'm not in the age bracket to be down on 6th Street having fist fights, and I stay as far away from anybody that would do that. But click it on, have the sound off, guys talking shit, whatever. Then it turns into like 3 frat guys against like 3 street kids, and just explodes. And whoever's shooting it had like a slick ass camera. I don't know if it was a phone or whatever. This shit was in high def, very slick footage. But all of a sudden, all 3 of the street guys are on their backs getting wailed on. I saw one double leg takedown from the frat boys, and I'm presumably the same thing happened in all 3 cases. I learned this first rock concert I went to in Amarillo, Texas. Don't fuck with the wrestling team, period.
Oh, so these frat guys are wrestlers.
They had the one guy that I saw fight, he was getting wailed on, getting lit up with a couple punches, but then he gets a double leg, puts the kid on his back, you know, and then the footage is chaotic. But at one point you saw all 3 of the street kids down on their backs, all 3 of the frat boys standing up, kicking heads, punching in the face. Obviously, we disapprove of that kind of criminal conduct. I'm just saying wrestling works in real life. Everybody that watches MMA knows that shit. But anyway, all right, we're moving to the...
Speaking of which, I've heard tell of people coming down in this anti-Henzo team because of the recent club brawl in New York. And I have to say, if you guys have never been to a club in New York, you got to know, I'm a former bouncer, but I feel no allegiance to the bouncers in New York who have traditionally always been complete and total scumbags, you know. So, you know, you might want to feel like, you know, pile on the whole anti-Henzo train, but you got to know that, you know, it's the bouncers' word that they went to the front of the line. You know, I don't have any independent verification that was the case. You know, the bouncers in New York are assholes. Sorry. You know.
Good clarification that he's referring to the Henzo Gracie arrest. I believe it was, it might have been Saturday night. I'm not sure which morning he was arrested. It might have been late Sunday night, Monday morning. But there's video of the post scuffle, and Henzo apparently got arrested. Rumor is the video that I saw, some guy was talking to his phone. Hey man, that's Henzo Gracie. He just guillotined some fucker. So like, just a message. Like, don't fuck with Henzo Gracie if you see him out in public. And also, word to the bouncers in the club, Henzo's got money. And as Jay-Z says, I got some cash, I can fight the case. So I imagine I've not heard the last of the Gracie family if they want to turn it into a big deal. But anyway, that brings us to the first fight of the preliminary card. Lightweights Al Iaquinta and Mitch Clark.
No, I'm sorry.
Really, Al Iaquinta has penetrated my consciousness.
I'm sorry. How are you spelling his name?
I-A-Q.
Yeah, Q. Yeah. Okay, you're right. He has penetrated my consciousness. Your pronunciation massacred.
No, it's my fault. Yeah,
a bad dancer blames his shoes, you know.
Indeed. Well, I'm glad I'm here to cover for you, Eugene. Because Al Iaquinta, that is a terrible name. Apologies to the Iaquinta family. It's very hard to spell, very hard to remember. I'm sure in Italy or somewhere it makes more sense, but to English speakers,
I don't know the other guy though. I remember. I loved his band, the Mike Clark Five.
It's Mitch Clark.
Mitch Clark 5. Yeah,
and for anybody under, 49, nobody's going to have any idea what you're referencing. The Dave Clark 5, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rivals with the Beatles for a heady 6 weeks in 1964. Right. But Mitch Clark is 1-2 in his last 3 fights in his entire UFC run. So I don't know what I.
And see, when you say that, there's no inherent drama. Mitch Clark is 1-2. So the worst that happens to Mitch Clark is that he has to leave the UFC and fight somewhere else. I mean, I've become a real Bellator booster, man, because these are what we call the desperation straits, you know.
Yeah, well, we had a story you probably had time to see on Bloody Elbow this morning. Our own John S. Nash spoke to a lot of managers who are saying that the Bellator, and they showed him the contracts, and Bellator didn't deny these clauses were in there. The Bellator contract, if you thought they were being sticky and it was a spider web when Eddie Alvarez was caught in it, or when Ed Askren had to sit out for a year before fielding any offers, they've only made them stickier. Their response to the Eddie Alvarez situation was, "Oh, we're not exploiting these guys enough. We'd better fuck them harder." So there's even more traps and extensions and all kinds of pitfalls in these contracts. And John Nash and these managers trying to make heads or tails of these traps that Bjorn the Spider has laid in those contracts. But anyway,
Stalin would have loved a contract like that.
Stalin had a sense of humor. That's the thing about Hitler and Stalin. Like, I get where you're all with the Nazis and they got the uniforms and everything, but Stalin had a sense of humor, man. Like, Hitler was a pit bull, monstering, savaging people. Stalin was a cat playing with prey.
Right. And, well, he had a sense of humor, but he was the only one laughing.
Sure.
Yeah. Somebody gave me some Mussolini speeches. And
everybody was laughing at those.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know what he was saying because my Italian is not that fluent, but he's giving these speeches and people are like, and he's laughing. I love that, man. I don't know what he was saying. He was talking about invading, Abyssinia. Fuck those Abyssinians.
Yeah. I mean, Mussolini obviously was no joke if he was invading your country, but half the time he got his ass kicked anyway, even when he was invading Albania and Abyssinia. I mean, and when he fucked with the middleweight like Yugoslavia or Greece, he really got his ass kicked. So, but Stalin, man, that cat laid traps. That's all I'm saying. You did not. With Hitler, you could kind of follow the plan and kind of have an idea of how to please the Fuhrer. With Stalin, you could do exactly what you were told, and
no, but he was like the Hell's Angels of the dictator world. You're in a bar with the Hell's Angels, somebody says, "Who's a faggot?" I didn't call you a faggot. You call me a liar? Uh-oh.
Exactly.
Checkmate, Jack.
Yeah. They're looking for trouble. They'll find it. But Iaquinta is riding a 3-fight win streak. So this is one upside of the flood of fights and fighters in the UFC is we're finally seeing guys getting fed cans. No offense to Mitch Clark, he's not a can, he's in the UFC, but compared to Iaquinta, this is a squash match. It's high risk for Iaquinta because he's got nothing to gain from this fight. And I'm sure tomorrow on the Vivisection or on Thursday, whatever day we're doing it, that they'll tell me, the smart boys who have nothing to do but watch these fights will tell me all about how this is a late-minute substitute. But what I'm liking is they're not knocking Iaquinta off here. They're letting him feast on somebody.
Yep.
And
why?
I think that's... Huh?
Why?
Why do I like that?
No. Why the gimme for Iaquinta?
Well, I mean, it's you got a guy who's 3-0 against a guy who's 1-2. I mean, Iaquinta has caught my attention.
No, I know, but why the sudden burst of niceness for Iaquinta?
Oh, I think because they're overworked. They're having to book too many fights. They don't have time to fuck with it. They're barely stringing headline. I mean, look at this card. This card was supposed to be the big Memorial Day weekend card. Remember back when the UFC Memorial Day weekend was a big card?
Yep.
This was supposed to be Chris Weidman versus Vitor Belfort, which wouldn't be huge, but at least if you told a UFC fan, hey, it's Vitor Belfort fighting the guy who beat Anderson Silva twice, they go, oh, yeah, I want to see that. But like yesterday, my internet went out, and it could go out again anytime. It would be the third time in 2 weeks. My internet went out. I was on the phone with the cable company for 20 minutes. The whole message was, UFC 173 featuring Renan Barrio against defensive machine TJ Dillashaw. I mean, that shit sells itself. Like, A, they can't pronounce the champ's name, and B, defensive machine TJ Dillashaw. I mean, it's like nobody, even in the heyday of Bob Gibson, nobody went at the ballpark was going, come see another no-hitter, guys. Like, they're going to be coming up and sitting down. I mean,
it's going to be a thrill fest.
Exactly. Like, I mean, you just defense is never a selling point. I mean, unless it's the Buddy Ryan, 46 blitz defense. But anyway, we care about this. We're picking out Iaquinta. Moving on, bantamweight, Chris Holdsworth and Chico Camus.
Oh yeah. Right. If you don't remember, Chico Camus has been the butt of past shows, past jokes.
Indeed.
I loved his work in The Plague.
I'm a stranger man myself. He
you
lost
guys,
me with that.
Go to the internet if you don't know what we're talking about.
Exactly. Killing an Arab, The Cure, right-wing radio stations turning that into some kind of racist mush. Anyway, it's a long history.
Did I tell you the possibility has recently emerged of me appearing on Bill O'Reilly's show?
Now that is going to be interesting. Are you going to play an angry street thug?
No, I'm going to play a raging liberal. That was a direct quote.
Raging liberal Negro. Good luck with that on the Bill O'Reilly show.
I kind of wanted to say, you realize, of course, I'm a fascist. but I don't want to joke with those guys. Cause
no, there's no joke there, but you can throw them some curveballs they will not be prepared for. That could be very interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
The show that they wanted me to appear on first off was like, if a man has a kid with a woman that he is not paying child support for, he's got a job, not paying child support for the kid, and he impregnates another woman, should he go to jail? Apparently there's legislation afoot to jail men who are deadbeat dads who continue being dads.
And so I assume this will only be enforced on black people, because if they were to enforce that against the white dads in Texas, that would literally be every fucking one of them. My sister shut it down so fast. She goes, all right, let's get this straight. So the state is paying for his first deadbeat kid. The state is paying for the second deadbeat kid, and the state is now paying to imprison him. That's a pretty good deal for the state. Well, the thing is, there's a private prison company somewhere writing these bills, and they will be profiting. And so you're taking somebody who's maybe marginally employed, maybe not, but he's probably a drag on McDonald's if they're giving him or Walmart, wherever he's trying to get a job. That's who they're after. They're not after the guys that have the money to hire a real lawyer. They're after the guys that can suck into the web, and they're looking to turn you into a profit center. That's how this
exactly. Or to quote Biafra again, making money for President Reagan and all the friends of President Reagan.
Exactly.
That's one of my favorite lines, because I'm sure he meant that as a broadside. That was the first time I heard that line. I was like, yeah. That's if you're a criminal, you're supposed to make money for yourself and your friends. I like that.
Exactly. That's the old Meyer-Lansky theorem there. But no joke in this economy. What an ugly law. But back to the fights. So we care about Camus, but barely. We don't care about Holdsworth. It brings us to lightweights. Tony Ferguson versus Katsunori Kikuno.
Yep. Okay.
Oh yeah. You care about both these guys or just one?
No, I care about the both, but I'm gonna go. I'm seeing glimmers of hope in the whole Japanese thing. So
this is a tough test for Kikuno here, and Kikuno, I've been a fan of this cat for 3 years. He was in Sengoku or Dream. I can't remember which one. I think he was in Dream. Karate stylist, protege of TK, who was part of the alliance with Frank Shamrock and Maurice Smith that revolutionized MMA back in the day. This kid throws a crescent kick to the liver. He fights with this stupid-ass zombie stance, but he makes it work. He nearly choked out Eddie Alvarez. He won his UFC debut, but Tony Ferguson is no joke. This guy is a mean wrestle boxer, and so this is sadistic booking. This is your usual Joe Silva booking right here, or this is probably Sean Selby at lightweight. But.
Joe Silva. You can see him sitting around going, "Fuck those guys." What are you going to do with this card, Joe? Fuck those guys.
Exactly. Exactly. When I was in public affairs, and I'm definitely not saying any names because there's some names in my business that are like saying the devil's name. You just don't mention them. I'm not even going to say what company I work for. But I later found out that the CEO of our company, the chairman, the big man, the big kahuna, who's gone on to take over even bigger companies, people told me that he once confided in somebody in an AA meeting, which obviously is off limits for sharing, but that he confessed, I wake up in the morning thinking how I can just fuck with people. Just do random things. Might even cost me money in my business just to fuck with somebody and see how they do.
Well, you know what? You know what? That's what happened to Devo, man.
Devo?
Guy took over Warner Brothers and was like, okay, let's see who we have. And it was, who's this Devo? And I'm like, they got this whole de-evolution thing and the bougie boy, and they got, are we not men? And he goes, fuck those guys. That was it.
Man, yeah, because they're the one band of that era, especially from the Ohio branch of the punk rock explosion.
Yep.
They're the one band that had their shit together. They had a game plan. They never compromised their vision, and yet they played all the commercial cards right, made it big, totally were playing ball with the corporate beast, and then suddenly, like you say, I didn't know the backstory, they just got turned off. So yeah, look out, because there's fuckers out there with power, and then coincidentally, those are the fuckers who get power. People who do that, sociopathic assholes. So anyway, Ferguson and Kakuno, you're picking Kakuno.
Yes, I am.
Man, I'm rooting for him, but I just.
I'm still over 500 with my picks. So there's a certain amount of boldness that informs my decisions.
I see. I stopped.
Which is completely different from you, who needs to play on the side of caution.
I really don't even keep track of this shit. I know that when I did make picks on Bloody Elbow and it was kept track of, I was always a solid second or third place, well over 60% of my picks. So, but these days, though, with these fights that I barely know who's fighting, I'm not even going to pretend. But with Ferguson Kakuno, I know these cats. Ferguson's only lost once in the UFC. He's been here since 2011. Cat is for reals. Kakuno, as much as I love him, I have some questions about his style. Could be ugly for Kakuno fans, but we will see. So you'll be humiliated.
We got some action.
We got some action, Mr. Robinson, and I will be winning this one, just in case anybody's wondering. That brings us to the headliner, and I don't know why this is the headliner. Lightweight Michael Kisa versus Francisco Trinaldo.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
This has to be Ultimate Fighter, guys, because otherwise, who do they think cares about these guys? I have no idea.
Well, maybe it's like when you go to a wine tasting and they give you crackers. These guys are crackers.
And now that's a racial slur, Mr. Robinson.
Well, only if they're from the south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Hey, you're looking at him.
Okay, well, there are no New York crackers.
Oh, there's plenty. That's the thing about, when you travel the world. I came from a small town in Texas, and I thought I was coming from the most ignorant, backward place on earth. Then I traveled around a little, and I realized upstate New York and the Texas Panhandle are the same.
Oh, my God. You're right about that.
Backwater.
I went up to upstate New York. I was like, oh, my God, I got to get back to the city. This shit's crazy.
Yeah, it is the backwoods, man. And there aren't any black people to leaven it up out there. It's all white.
Hey, man, I was 15 years old. I went to a bar named Howie's in Putnam County near Poughkeepsie. And next thing I know, Marines are standing over my table calling me boy, which I didn't mind because I was 15. But I looked at the oldest guy at the table and see like, hey, we're going to swing on these guys or what? Because he was like a black belt in karate. He was looking at his drink. And as soon as those guys walked away, he was like, let's go. I was like, oh, I guess we should be afraid. Man, it was straight out of like some Burt Reynolds movie.
Yeah, it's ugly shit, man. There's not a lot to do but pick fights out there. Anyway, yeah, I think these guys are Ultimate Fighter veterans, but I'm not sure. Yeah, Chiesa beat Iaquinta. He's 3-1 since his only losses to George Masvidal, so pretty impressive, but he just hasn't penetrated my brain, so I don't care. That brings us to the first fight of the pay-per-view, and this is where things really get iffy. Jamie Varner versus James Krauss. First, put yourself in the I just paid $55 for this frame of mind. Yeah. Here comes my first $10 worth. Jamie Varner versus James Krauss.
Well, I'm a Varner fan, sort of. So
who's not a fan of the Worm?
I'm a fan until I figure out what he's done. There's always, seriously, there's guys that you got these like whisper campaigns, and everybody seems to know but me. I got no idea what he did. What did he do? And everybody looks at me like I'm an idiot when I ask, like, oh, come on. Come on, what? That's not an answer. What, oh, he's had a rough time of it. Joe Rogan refers to it. What are you talking about, Joe? How come I don't know this,
Well, the cover story, at least, is that he was in the WEC. He was at the championship level. He was right in there with Ben Henderson, Donald Cerrone, those guys going back and forth. Lost some key fights, then lost some fights he was supposed to win. sunk all the way out of the WEC right when they were moving to the UFC, just completely blew it. Then he lost to that kid who was going to be the first not even openly gay fighter, the first gay for pay fighter on Ultimate Fighter history. Now I can't remember Dakota Cochran, the unfortunately named Dakota Cochran. And then he loses to Dakota Cochran, and he really had to dig himself out of a hole, and he did. And then he comes back and he won his got a short notice call up to the UFC, and surprised everybody when he beat which one of these? Edson. Let's see. Who'd he beat? Edson Barboza. But since then, he's literally
That's right.
1-3 since then. So Jamie's just and James Krauss though. All I remember about James Krauss, and I do this for a living. I mean, admittedly, I'm doing other shit like doing payroll for all the stupid, not stupid, but all stupid payroll for all the many hardworking, wonderful bloggers.
Speaking of which, my last paycheck was kind of light, Jack.
Was it?
Yes.
Well, we got to talk about that because there's some changes afoot, and that's going to change the timing of money, but it should be more money in the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just be patient. We're changing.
Otherwise, I was going to start chanting Attica, Attica, Attica.
Just what I need to trigger a labor crisis. Anyway, this is the kind of shit I spend most of my day dealing with, and people's computer cords, and just the real life stuff. So, but I barely am aware of who somebody on the UFC pay-per-view is. This is only his third fight in the UFC. Third fight in the UFC, he's beaten Sam Stout, lost to Bobby Green, and now suddenly he's an $11 fight, on the pay-per-view. Just that is just promotional malpractice right there. Sorry, James Krauss. I'm sure you're great, but dude, you're not pay-per-view yet. All right, but Jamie Varner is, so maybe Jamie. But I mean, Jamie's coming in at 1-3. It's like I don't want to see Jamie lose to some random who's not going to be able to.
Or maybe they're just counting on the fact that people are perpetually tardy, and you come in on the tail end of that. You feel like you saw something. You don't feel ripped off, but then you're not gonna have your ass in the seat at that point.
Man, that's the thing though. With the UFC, they've trained their fans to be. They're expecting us to be in our seats 3 hours before the shit starts.
I was complaining about baseball games. I go, man, how can you sit through a baseball game that's 5 hours? And my friend says, I've sat through 5-hour fights. I was like, what? I go, oh yeah, I guess they start at 5.
Yeah, every one of those is an 8-hour ordeal. I mean, honestly, I used to pine for seeing the prelim fights and go back and watch them all. I'm ready to shuck it. Let's not even tell the fans they're happening. I thought Bellator really screwed up by following the UFC model of having internet fights, preliminary. They didn't even show the internet fights on the Spike show. Their contracts are so exploitative, they're not even prepared to put those guys on TV if things go right. So you had a 2-hour. I mean, I got excited because the rumors there was going to be a work, and also I was worried because I was sick and some of our guys were out, and I was like, oh, the guys are going to be fucking up the coverage of this. I know it. Got out of my sick bed, turn on the Spike TV show, and I'm like, 2 hours till the real fights? Are you fucking kidding me? And sure enough, there was 15 minutes of fights and 2 hours of bullshit, and then we get the pay-per-view. So I'm sick of the endless marathon cards. And then, in the old days...
For the record, I am not.
Well, you're completely insane, because this is my day job. This is your hobby. We pay you nickels and change, but there's no logical reason for you to keep doing this other than hopefully you enjoy it. And you're collecting those quarters. I don't know. Maybe your girlfriend doesn't know, but you get paid for these. I don't know. But anyway... For any of you young single guys, you will someday learn the value of the grocery store cash fund.
Yeah. or I like to go, my 7-Eleven money. That's I got walking around money. No, I got 7-Eleven money.
Exactly.
I'm going to go for a Pop-Tart today. Woo!
Exactly. Oh, I can get $40 at the ATM at the grocery store? Wife's too busy to be checking the receipts? $40. Nobody has to answer for. Anyway, and that brings us to bantamweights. Takeya Mizugaki versus Francisco Rivera.
Mizugaki I pay attention to.
Yeah, I do too, but Rivera, I recognize the name, but doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
But, and I'd like to think, oh, well, Mizugaki's kind of a contenderish. Well, Rivera looks pretty real. Looks like he's 3-0 with 1 no contest. Failed a drug test, so I'm caring.
Failed the drug test for what?
They don't say. It says for substance. And that was in Canada, so they don't tell you what he tested for, but it got turned into a no contest. With the way these stupid commissions work, that could have been pot, or it could have been the worst steroid on earth. We don't know. He could have been frothing at the mouth, so hyped up on methamphetamines and painkillers. We don't know. Anyway,
I saw one terrifying website. It was so terrifying that like I burned the URL out of my head. And the website was I can't remember. It was like bodybuildersgonetoseed.com or some such thing. And it had Paul Dillette and all your favorite famous bodybuilders. And at first I thought, oh, this has got to be photoshopped. And then finally, after about the third or fourth photo, I realized this is actually not photoshopped. This is like they had a Flex Wheeler. This is like, that whole porn stars without makeup website. It's like, oh man, we've really gone for the long, high, hard one, believing in the image projection of the makeup and the hair being done, and they're greased and tanned and oiled up, and man, I gotta get a body like that. Yeah. 2 weeks later, who the fuck is that? Put on a shirt.
So were they like, had they stopped working out, stopped taking their roids, done a bunch of meth? Like, were these guys way past their sell-by date, or were these still active guys who had just gone to seed between contests?
Well, the one that was most horrifying to me was like Paul Dillette, because I was a fan, and he just had a gut, a gut, and it was like, it's unshaved, so he's like, he just looked like a homeless guy who used to do push-ups.
Oh, well. You know what I'm seeing a lot at the pools around Austin this summer? And I've noticed this more and more. A few years ago, I noticed you couldn't go to the upscale pool anywhere without seeing like 50-year-old guys who were clearly roided to the gills, and some of them were getting pec implants. Now I'm seeing younger guys who are so soft, but they have these enormous pecs. I really want to go up and pinch them and like, dude, did dude get an implant? Like, I mean...
Well, this is the weird thing about 70-year-old women now who have, 80-year-old women who have implants. It's like, what are you shaking your head like that's nasty? I was just about to go, yeah, 85-year-old women.
Look, I mean, as Ben Franklin said, they age from the top down, so the legs of an old, but old titties are supposed to fall, man. That's just natural.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, we've gone far afield here.
Yes, we have. We need to wrap this up. So we care about Mizugaki Rivera. Could be a good fight. I love some Mizugaki. And this brings us to the first fight that I consider a legitimate UFC pay-per-view worthy card. Robbie Lawler versus Jake Ellenberger. This fight has contender implications written all over it.
Yeah.
We obviously both care. Who you picking here?
I'm going to have to go. If you had talked to me a year or so ago, I'd have been a strong Ellenberg contender. But I'm thinking Robbie's got the taste of blood in his mouth. And, no second acts in American lives, bullshit. He's a friend to knuckle up. I'm going to have to go with the sentimental pick. I'm picking Lawler on this one.
I got to pick Lawler, too, because this is a kid who was half-assing it for more than a decade and stayed alive enough to get back to the UFC. I mean, he probably wouldn't have come. There's no chance he would have made it back if Strikeforce hadn't been bought. But once he got his chance, once he realized the stakes, he put it together. And kid is mean. He always has been. He hits hard. I mean, Ellenberger is mean, too. These are both extremely scary individuals. Like, if they were standing over your table saying, boy, I mean, run, because these are mean, scary, dangerous cats. I wouldn't take these guys on with a shotgun, like, honestly. Like,
I would. I would have shotgun.
It depends how close I was. If I had a sawed-off shotgun and I was in a small room, fuck yeah, I'll take their lunch money. But if I had a real big shotgun and I'm in a small room and I had to turn and aim,
no, you're taking a real serious.
Yeah, unless I had to drop on them with a shotgun, I would not pull it on these cats. These cats are dangerous.
The problem with guns, the guns in these kinds of situations, is that one guy pulls a gun out. You have two types of guys who pull guns out. You have the kind of guy who pulls a gun out because he's hoping to be a speed bump to whatever action's happening at the time. Like, I want to calm the room down. This, however, rarely calms a room down. And then there's a guy who's going to work. I'm pulling out this hammer because I intend to do some hammering. Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, the first category of people are fools. Sometimes they get
Yes.
away with it. Second category of people are very dangerous. For the
We
record,
also known as killers.
anybody coming to my house, I don't even have guns. But if I pull them, I'm shooting you in the head, and then I'm
Yeah.
going to shoot you in the head again when you're down, and then we'll call the police, and then we'll see what
Actually,
happens.
there's a couple of guys in the Midwest who have gone to jail for this. You
For shooting
know,
somebody after for the execution style thing on a burglary. Yep.
correct,
Yep.
correct.
In Texas you can get away with shooting a black or a Mexican guy in the back walking down the street because they looked in your car. This literally happened. But
Yeah, I know, I remember this.
but I knew somebody was on that jury. It was heartbreaking. But she felt like they just broke her down and she couldn't fight the tie. But anyway, I think I could probably if somebody comes in my house in Texas, they're dead. That's generally
My favorite was a Republican congressman. I think this was in Florida, who they found filleting men in a men's room in a park, and they asked him to explain, and he said that he
he was
in
talking
there.
with his mouth full.
Yeah, yeah, no. At this point, I think he was in handcuffs, and he said he was saying that well, I went in the bathroom and there was a black guy in there, and they're like, and
Well,
like,
it's like it's the
said
freeze or fight or flee or fillet, you know?
That's right. That's right. He said he was afraid, and that was his fear response. And they,
Sorry.
and they said, well, we have video of you going back in there a second time.
I was still scared.
I was still scared. I don't know what you do when you're scared, but when I'm scared, I fillet the nearest black man.
It's just a pacifier, man. It's solid. I give my, Oh man.
He did it. Yeah. His political career was in shambles, but he provided America with a good laugh.
Indeed, indeed. One thing Republicans don't forgive, it's interracial homosexuality they're not fans of. Now, Senator David Vitter wants to pay women to change his diapers. Hey, whatever.
Like that KKK guy. I was going to kick his ass, but, one thing led to another.
Indeed.
What? That's like an Eddie Murphy argument,
Oh.
She was hitchhiking.
Hey, whatever. Pay the guy Danny Bonaducci like they said when Danny Bonaducci beat up the he-she. Look, what you want to do in your car when you're driving around is your own business, but pay the man, for Christ's sake. Pay the man. All right, that brings us to the co-main event. Light heavyweights Dan Henderson and Daniel Cormier.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, definitely care. Cormier looked a little chubby at some of the pre-fight shows this week. He was on, I think, the Jay Moore show in L.A., Moore was saying he was 15 pounds over weigh-in limit, which is not a big deal. Whoever, some radio host in L.A. named Jay with an M for the last name.
It could be Jay Moore. I like Jay Moore. Jay Moore is a Jim Rome protege. When 2007,
yeah, he was definitely Jay Moore then.
2007, when I came out with the fight book, me and Gilda Squire, head of PR at HarperCollins, made a big play for getting on Jim Rome, and Jim Rome goes, "We got NASCAR." That was his explanation. I immediately never, ever listened to Jim Rome again. And then, like somebody was saying, oh, so-and-so was on Jim Rome. The Jim Rome's all over MMA now. I go, now he's over there. I go, you know what, man? You're dead to me. You're dead to me.
You can't be holding vendettas like that, Eugene. You got to be opportunist, man. You got to understand, the time was wrong, time was right. But whatever. Anyway.
What would Stalin do? You're right.
Stalin would be back. Stalin would be back on the show, and then after the show, Jim Rome would be quietly taken away.
Or maybe not so quietly taken away. Hey, could you come
Depends
in for a second?
If Stalin needed to send a message or not,
Yeah, right, exactly.
But anyway, Dan Henderson apparently was at his fighting weight, which is no surprise because he barely weighs 205 after he eats a strawberry sundae. Like, Daniel Cormier was 15 pounds over. I don't know if that's a big deal or not.
No.
Cormier wrecked his kidneys with the weight cuts, but
a 15-pound weight cut for him at this point is not going to do that. So.
Yeah, one would hope not. But how about the fight itself? It should be all Cormier. Henderson seems to be well past his prime.
Well, we talked about this, if you remember, like a week or so ago, and at the time I had picked Henderson, and I said, but I needed to wait until we actually did the care or don't care, because it would have given me a few days time to kind of take things into account and see what was up. And you know what? I see it's being stacked where Henderson is, you know, ideally placed to be a spoiler, and you know that DC is a man of tomorrow, and you know only a fool would bet against DC, but I'm a fool. I like DC. He's a friend to knuckle up. You
And
know,
he's very, 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 very talented and dangerous.
talented, dangerous, you know, nice guy, been on the show, and I should pick him, but the contrarian in me wants to say what's going to happen is, you know, the guys at AK are so proud of their stand-up that he's going to be lured into, you know, I'm just going to outpunch him. You know, like Nick Diaz said, I'd like it known that when you talked about beating KJ Noons, that I beat him standing up. You know, and I think this could be. Let me put it this way. I believe, honestly, that Daniel Cormier is going to win, but the contrarian in me wants to pick Henderson.
I can see that. I mean, it's hard to give up on Henderson, even though he's probably the oldest man in the UFC right now. I think hands down. He's 43, almost as old as me. Not anywhere near as old as Eugene, but old as me. Hey. But you know, there's a lot of memories. Dan Henderson, any phrase tough as Dan Henderson is, leather, hell, whatever you want to say, tough bastard. Dan Henderson is that tough. Like Dan Henderson is just crazy, crazy, crazy tough. Like as far as who's the more rugged, serious dude between them in all aspects of life and the totality of life, it's not even close. Cormier is a college boy. Henderson is a real mean dude. Like just, but at this point in their careers, man, Cormier is so much faster. Henderson's got the first knockout maybe of his career against Belfort not long ago. He took some real shots against Shogun Rua. The thing is, I'm not convinced Cormier hits any harder than Shogun Rua does. Yeah. And I could see him. I mean, where Shogun got into trouble was he hurt Dan, and he was trying to get out of an exchange, and Dan caught him with the short right hand. And I mean, you know, he caught Fedor with some of those, and we haven't seen Cormier take a Dan Henderson punch.
Yep.
You know, I don't see him getting caught with the full-on H-bomb that Henderson has to lumber over and throw like a fastball. But he's got some short counters that could be real trouble for Cormier. So if Cormier's taking this lightly, that could be a really
no. I guarantee you, knowing what I know about Cormier,
he's a pro. He's a pro.
And Javier, that's the last thing they're doing. Nobody wants to stumble as close to the finish line. No way.
Yeah, because they're coming after John Jones in that title.
Yeah.
And you know, Cormier frankly blew it with his Olympic run and nearly killed himself in the process. He's not. It took some dings in the wrestling community because of that, because he screwed up. I mean, he did a full-on Anthony Johnson with his weight cut and hurt himself. But be that as may, we got to get to the main event. But here we are to the main event. And I love Henan Barao, but bantamweight title fight. Dude, this is the shit they're trying to give away on Fox, not trying to sell for $55. Yeah. Henan Barao against TJ Dillashaw. Barao's this unstoppable monster. He's basically Jose Aldo Jr.
Yeah.
Against yet another guy from Team Alpha Male. We haven't seen this particular matchup, but we've seen Nova Unao versus Team Alpha Male a few times. And how does it end, Eugene?
Barao wins. I mean, I'm guessing we care about this, right?
I mean, I think we have to. It's, you know, Henan Barao might be the best fighter in the game right now. He's got this incredible undefeated streak. I'm not that engaged with his personality, but he seems like a fine cat. You know, he came up through the WEC. He doesn't have a pride lineage or whatever.
Mm.
TJ Dillashaw, I see as like Uriah Faber IV. Like, he's not Uriah Faber Jr. He's not, you know, Joseph Benavidez III. He's like Uriah Faber IV. I don't know. I don't see any way he wins. Defensive machine is the selling angle. I mean, it's like this is a great fight for headlining a WC. Fine fight for headlining a Fox UFC. Like, these guys are going to put on a great fight. Both of them are brilliant athletes, master strategists. They're well-rounded athletes, students of the game. But $55 for this?
Yeah.
That's, you know, I mean.
That's a tank of gas, man.
Yeah, these days it is. Isn't that sad? Back in 1998, in my day, well, you get 10 tanks of gas for $55. But
Like when I started working on my 1965 big block Chevy.
yeah, that was a tank of gas for that thing in 1980. But you know.
Right. So
Right.
anyway, yeah. So I'm picking Barral on this one and proudly.
Yeah.
So I like the guy's personality. He's low. I just kind of like that. The counter to that, the coarsening thing. He seems to be a gentleman.
Agreed. No problem there. I'm just talking about a fan. Is he a colorful character? Like when you're trying to tell your friends who've been watching MMA for years, but they haven't checked out the fights in a while, who's this guy? He's not Vanderlei Silva or Pele or one of these legendary Brazilian type personalities. He's not Lyoto Machida, who's coming at it from a totally different angle. He's just a nice guy who happens to be one of the best fighters on the planet. That's
Yep.
And he's smaller than me. Like that's he's smaller than me.
Now that I would pay to see.
It wouldn't last long.
No, I would give you the advantage of the loose leaf binder.
Now I'd be full on soiling myself in the UFC cage, man. That would be no shame. Anything I could do to get out, I might jump the cage. It might take me a while, but
and then you could deny that you pooped your pants.
Exactly.
That wasn't poop. That was the color scheme on my shorts.
I'd definitely be wearing the Rich Franklin set, the brown and the pink. Just Anyway, so that's
we also have to have a section of the show where we talk about. We have to come up with a clever name for it, but essentially it's about failure to adjust to things as they are. And I think Rich Franklin was saying some stuff recently that indicates to me that he's failing to adjust to things as they are. Yes. Much like there are a few other guys like that right now. Tito being one of them.
Time for a reset, Rich Franklin. And then we could change out the segment, and it could be time for a reset, Phil Baroni.
Yeah. Right. Or OSB. Other sports beckon.
At this point, it's time for Rich to get back into teaching math, man. I guess he's got too much money to teach math at the Creationist Academy, but,
Is that where he was teaching before?
No, I think he was teaching at public school, but he's a pretty devout creationist. And if that's your belief system, great, but it's factually proven to be false.
Well, math class is very short for him then, because if the universe is only 5,000 years old,
contradictions like that he's not going to be worrying about. I've known some serious people with religious beliefs that are way out the pale, but they can be engineers or math teachers. Like they just don't connect the dots.
Right.
I'm sure he's a better math teacher than I would be for sure.
What about Jesus and the dinosaurs? That's something I heard that was pretty incredible.
Well, I've always wondered what kind of saddle Jesus liked to use on his brontosaurus. I think that's the real question. I think where's the archaeological evidence? Because I figured Jesus.
Come on. He didn't have a saddle on the brontosaurus. He had the car where you could put your feet through the floor and you run and everybody knows that was Jesus.
No. Jesus knew the power of using whatever kind of what do they call the animals you use to plow fields. There's a term for that.
Brontosaurus.
Yeah, come on, Mr. Stanford Education. You're supposed to help me out with these big words. Oxen. Yeah, but plow animals or something. Draw animals. There's a word for animals that pull carts or plows. Anyway.
Draft animals.
Draft animals. There you go. He knew the value of a draft animal. I mean, Fred Flintstone's just pushing a bunch of rocks down the street. That's Anyway, we're cursing Jesus and everything.
We're not. We're just talking about the theological connections between Fred Flintstone and Jesus. That's
exactly. That's it. No offense intended to anyone. So anyway, anything else to say? Final thoughts on the show?
Nah, that's it.
That's it. All right. Well, give us a like. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at KidNate. Eugene is at Eugene S. Robinson. Give us a subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already. Read us on BloodyElbow.com. I'll be back with Connor and Dallas for the MMA Vivisection.
Dallas! Let me tell you about that guy.
Exactly. And Dallas knows these fights. Connor knows these fights. They'll be telling you all about the insides and the outs.
You know what they don't know? They don't know about San Francisco's premier leather gay bar.
I heard you did a feature for Aussie.com about this.
Ah,
So
yeah, that's right.
I haven't got a chance to watch that yet. I still haven't watched Knuckle Up yesterday, and I watched the beginning with the toilet paper roll, and that was the dance routine you did was genius. Genius. That is going to be the highlight reel. That might be in every MMA Nation video from here on out, my friend. So
you don't know how many people didn't make it past that 57 seconds.
oh, I saw the data on that. I know exactly how many people didn't make it past the 57 seconds. But
I went in the train this morning. I walk in the room, everybody's looking at me like, yeah, and I'm like, what the hell? I can't even train with you anymore, man. I go, out of all the disgusting things I've done, this is pushing you over the top. You guys are nuts.
Very few men are comfortable enough with themselves to do that, I must say. But anyway, that's it for the show. We'll be back with the MMA Vivisection, I believe, on Thursday. Might be Wednesday. My apologies to that. But anyway, adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks, Eugene.
All right.
Good show.
All right, man. See you. Bye.
All right, see you.